Next on MLR Weekly, Utah CEO Kimball Kjar, Major League Rugby star Ben LeSage, and MLR headlines with Rugby Morning's Coffee Break via John Fitzpatrick. Rugby Wrap-Up brought to you in part by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, the world's best rugby pub. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Hello again and welcome back to MLR Weekly as presented by Rugby Wrap-Up Matt McCarthy in New York City, but not for the whole show because we'll be on the road again. We have our recurring segment, Rugby Morning's Coffee Break with John Fitzpatrick. John, greetings. Take us away.
Hey, Matt. Old Glory DC, they have signed Argentina international tight head prop Ramiro Herrera. Herrera's made 39 appearances with the Pumas and has also played in Super Rugby and Top 14, a big signing for Old Glory DC.
If you play 39 times for the Pumas, you got to be one hell of a player. Great pickup in the front row, a key position for Old Glory. Next!
Rugby ATL, they re-signed lock Justin Basson. He's 6'6", 260 pounds. He played 15 matches for Rugby ATL last season. I doubt he had anything to do with the rebrand.
Well, either way, he is one big Next!
Can you say that on this show?
Next!
The Utah Warriors have announced a rugby alliance with top 14 club Toulouse. Some more details are coming later this spring, but it sounds like there could be some exhibition matches in Utah and across North America, and there'll be some player and coaching swaps as well. Fascinating stuff coming out of Utah.
And the big question for rugby fans across the globe about this alliance is, où est la bibliothèque? Prochain!
Avez-vous un stylo?
Merci, John, and thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back after this with the CEO of the Utah Warriors, Kimball Kjar.
Selling or trading in your vehicle? Sheehy makes it easy. With Easy Trade, start online or visit us in store. We want your vehicle, and we'll give you up to 125% of KBB value.
It's easy at Sheehy. Sheehy.com.
And we're back with the CEO of the Utah Warriors, not Kimball Kjar, not Kimball Kjar, it's Kimball Kjar, sir. Is that correct?
That's right. We got it right.
It's not right. Kimball Kjar, like I've been saying for 15 years, and you just corrected me today politely, and I apologize to you and your family, sir. But the Utah Warriors, very exciting club, good, solid season last year. You got Greg Cooper coming in as your head coach. He played for that team called the All Blacks a couple of 7 times, right?
Yeah, he's a decent guy. No, he's listen, Coops is one of those guys that has been around the block, not only as a player, but as a coach. He coached in the top 14. He coached in the top league. He promoted the Dynabors twice from, Division II to the top league in Japan because of some weird COVID things that happened during the time that he was there. He's coached in Super Rugby, and he really is someone that we're excited to have in the organization. His experience, his professionalism, we feel like, we're in a much better situation now than we've ever been. So we're excited about 2023 and what it's going to provide.
And he's your 4th head coach. So you guys aren't, you don't mess around. If something's not right, you change the coach, right?
Well, one of those changes was obviously Chris Latham and just his inability to be able to come back and return. I still think to this day, Latham would have been an amazing coach in this league. I still think he's got plenty of energy. But, the nice thing about Chris is that he loves the game. He loves, the people that are surrounding him. He's an unbelievable human being. But because of COVID, unfortunately, he had to make that adjustment and stay in country. So it worked out the way that it needed to work out. And we're happy to have Coops involved, and we're looking forward to 2023.
And I wanted to touch base upon the ownership group. It's a pretty strong ownership group, and it even has international ties that even connect with Leinster.
Man, it's been an amazing journey just in the short 5 years that the league's been around, heading into our 6th season. But, even more so on our side to know that in 2018 and 2019, we were effectively operating on what I kind of called the the peanut butter and jelly budget. It was kind of that proof of concept, model where we didn't really know if the league was actually going to be around in the third year. It was, let's just kind of get through this and see how this goes. And we got to that point where the guys at the Tamarack Fund came into the equation and began to partner with our existing ownership. Some really, really smart guys. The chairman of the Warriors now is a guy by the name of John McGeady, who's a former Black Rock College guy, played and represented Leinster, and just has an absolute love not only for this game but also for the success of the business overall. So he's one of the Tamarack Fund managing partners, and to have someone like him involved with what we've been able to do since they came on board in early 2020, and to kind of work through some of the transitions of them, assuming control of the team and impacting the development of what we're doing. It's been amazing, and we're truly grateful to partner with these guys. They're amazing.
You guys have the opportunity here to maybe challenge in the West. Objectively speaking, I'm excited about looking at the prospects of what the Warriors can do on the pitch.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt that with his leadership, the culture and the vibe that they're building, as well as the pieces that we've been able to put in place in the off season, we're going to be in the mix in some way, shape, or form. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But that being said, you look at the West, you've got Chicago, which is basically, the best of the best from Austin and LA. You've got Houston that has been, stocking up and doing some exciting things. Seattle, which has been consistently good from day one. San Diego, who I think is going to rebound and have a successful year with some of the additional pieces they put in place. And then Dallas, that I believe isn't going to be, just an overlooked team, much to like what they were last year. So every game in the West is going to be an absolute battle, holding, serve on home court, so to speak. Being able to win your games at home is going to be crucial. And I don't know if, getting, bonus point wins is going to be in the deck of cards every single week. It's going to be a slugfest.
And your first game, you're opening up that stadium, Snapdragon Stadium, which in San Diego. Yeah.
But listen, there's plenty to be excited about with all of that. San Diego being able to move into Snapdragon is going to be amazing for the league. That's a beautiful stadium. We're really excited for that, for Ryan and Darren and those guys to really be able to put on a good product and event down there. So we're excited to really open that up with them. But then to come back here to altitude, there's really no other team in this league that has that element for all these other teams to combat. So being able to play at almost a mile high is going to be tough for teams. So with our crowd and the energy that they provide, we've got a good fan base. It's always raucous at Zions Bank Stadium, and in altitude, we're expecting to really be putting on some good shows at home.
Are you going to have the mascot on the motorcycle going?
We're thinking of new ways, to really, when we talk about innovation in the sport, that's one of the other. No, that was
class. That was great. And you have, if it happened organically, but it would be so great if it could happen regularly. It's kind of like a home field advantage thing. It's like the Green Monster in Boston for the Red Sox. You guys have the mascot on the motor. Oh, there he goes. You can only do it twice a match, though.
Yeah, our mascot that season didn't really quite know the boundaries of what could or couldn't be done. Let's just say that's been corrected.
What's the most exciting thing, if you're a Utah Warriors fan, that you should look forward to with the offseason changes?
Listen, we've done a lot. We really value the game day experience. So there's going to be some new elements, some new on-field entertainment things. We're trying to really kind of think of the whole game day experience differently than anything that's been done in rugby or even professional sport, and we really try to dig into that and lean into that very heavily. So there's going to be plenty of new things that are going to be on the field as well as off the field in terms of how we entertain, communicate, educate fans while they're at the stadium, new fans, so they come to love and appreciate the sport of rugby. We've got a new hospitality area that we're excited to put out to the community, and we've already seen a lot of pickup from that. We're almost sold out with that hospitality tent area. So the game day vibe is going to be great all around.
Historically speaking, you guys have had some of the most exciting matches in league history. The comeback kings, some of those unbelievable comeback wins.
2021 was, I had to get a pacemaker inserted. I mean, those games just about near killed me some of the time.
Let's open it up a little bit and talk about the league. I got some questions for you in terms of what's going on. What is the general feeling amongst the clubs about the Super Rugby Americas, which is apparently another professional setup that's going to touch base on American soil via the American Raptors?
In most cases, more rugby is not bad rugby, right? And we appreciate what they were formerly known as SLAR and now they're SRA. What those guys have been able to build, and it's truly exciting. I mean, what they've been able to turn into with their national teams and this collaboration with the professional teams that they're doing down there, it's super interesting. But it's very good for their markets, their countries, what it is that they see in terms of their challenges, and it's truly, it is actually pretty innovative and exciting in terms of South American rugby. But in North American rugby, it becomes a very different equation. And I think it's something that, you can't really speak to without acknowledging just how hard it is to grow any sport, let alone rugby here in the United States. And I think just going off of the 5 years, 5 seasons, heading into our 6th, you've got to remember that just in terms of the raw capital of what the MLR owners and teams have put together in those 5 years, it's over $230 million. And that's just on salaries, expenditures at the league level. That doesn't include the local operational expenses and costs of each team. That doesn't include
$500 million over 5 seasons if you average in 10 teams.
Exactly. So what you're kind of looking at just from those base numbers right there is, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money to really try to penetrate the American market. And the concept that is being presently sort of bandied about with SRA and the American Raptors, having known them and partnered with them originally as part of this MLR experience, it's not going to come to fruition with the slow and grow organic model that I think that SRA and World Rugby or even USA Rugby model would potentially try to support in some way, shape, or form, or historically has tried to support that, better stated. But listen, we think that where we're at and where we're positioned and what we're doing to support the game is vital to what it is that we're doing at the MLR level. Not only that amount of capital, we also supported through our ownership groups $2 million to help get the World Cup bids here in the United States. We committed $300,000 to the repechage rounds that the USA Rugby did.
Yeah, you folks paid for USA Rugby to go to South Africa for those test matches, right? Or those warm-up matches. The repechage.
That was part of and listen, that's part of our interest to collaborate and be good partners, and understanding that what's good for the goose is good for the gander on both sides. And we're just really looking forward to a meaningful, substantive partnership and collaboration with all the various different stakeholders within this hemisphere. That would include Rugby Canada, USA Rugby, World Rugby, and the potential partners from SRA in the long term. How they see the American Raptors fitting into that, and whatever sort of potential plans they have for that, that's really their case and their conversation that they need to have with World Rugby. But as we see it, there's plenty of opportunities there to do something much more collaboratively than what's already being done.
Interesting. Okay. It depends on who you speak to across the MLR spectrum on a take on whether it's positive or negative. Does it ruffle your feathers a little bit that the World Rugby and USA Rugby at this point seem to be pretty connected to the American Raptors and the SRA thing?
Listen, I think you've got to kind of take that with the grain of salt, no matter what it is. Whether or not this group or that group is connected and how, involved they are in those conversations. I think knowing what we know in terms of the conversations that we've been having with USA Rugby and World Rugby and others, we're just really pushing hard to be more engaged, more collaborative, more involved in creating an overarching strategy for North America, because it's not going to happen in various different silos. And, this group trying to do what it's done historically, or that group trying to do what it's done historically, or even the MLR just trying to do things on its own. That's not going to be good for the game here in North America. I think just broadly speaking, when you look at the game of rugby, just overall, even globally, we have a very unique, what I kind of call a crab pot mentality, where, if somebody decides to go and do something, or, kind of be a little bit different and innovative, then, we have this tendency to pull them back in and try to keep them on the same playing field. But really, as I look at it from a global perspective, if you even look at the Premiership, Super Rugby, URC, and to some degree the top 14, rugby worldwide is struggling. It hasn't figured out what's going to be the right algorithm to make sure that it's commercially sustainable and viable on an international level. And so what we have here in North America is an opportunity to really kind of set a new trend and set a new path to do something that is candidly very innovative and different than what's been done historically through that union-based central contracting, sole control, sole ownership of players and leagues and commercial rights, which in the end, it creates a misaligned series of incentives that, we're seeing begin to kind of have issues, and it's being tested and it's having problems with owners within, the PRL that are going bankrupt because they can't afford to keep the teams going, because half their players are gone during half the season because they're, up with,
and that's Premiership that you're speaking about over in England.
Yeah. So, listen, I think it can't be underscored enough to say that regardless of what, people's perceptions of USA Rugby, World Rugby, and the SRA stuff is, we have a unique opportunity here in the United States and in North America in general with Major League Rugby to truly, innovate something that's going to be sustainable. We've already shown that we can withstand COVID. We've already shown that we can withstand
it's been remarkable, to
issues.
be honest with you. The fact that you guys have survived all of this to be able to talk about a sixth season is pretty remarkable.
Well, and like I said, kind of the outset, like we didn't even really know if we were going to get into that third season. And, to get through COVID, to get through some of the issues that we saw internally with the Austin and LA stuff, listen, to be where we're at today, to now have,
you mean
effectively,
just for the folks at home that might not know this, you're referring to the LA Giltinis and the Austin Gilgronis allegedly going over the cap too much, and then basically now they're out of the league after a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, they stress tested the single entity model and how we could withstand, a scenario where, without really going into too many details, one of the owners was really putting the partnership under duress, right? And it needed to be able to be sorted in a clean and methodical fashion in order to make sure that, the best interests of the league were safeguarded. And I think overall the MLR did that through that process. But notwithstanding all of that, we've gone through all of these different tests, and we're heading into our sixth season. We've just added Chicago, who's got an amazing ownership group. It's widely known and recognized on social media that we're adding another team with another amazing ownership group. And
we're not going to bring up Miami. We're not going to, because we don't know about it yet. So we're not going to bring it up.
Well, it's up to you, but it's obviously out there, in no uncertain terms. But, listen, both of those groups are adding significant value and intellectual capital to the boardroom of the MLR, which for me, looking back on where we were at when we had our first meeting in late 2016, and it was just a bunch of rugby heads, to where we're at now with smart, intelligent people that are CEOs and owners of 44 billion market cap companies. We've come a long way. We've come a long, long way.
And last question, just tell me about the partnership with Stade Toulouse.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's just another one of those things where, from the get-go, we think there's an opportunity to be innovative with what we do here in North America and how we present opportunities to not only the rugby community in general and how we grow the game here in North America, but utilizing some of that same thinking to create new opportunities, new commercial and business development opportunities that haven't been done before. As I mentioned earlier, I think some of the inherent tectonic shifts that we're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years within the professional landscape of rugby is going to be underpinned by these historic professional models that haven't proven that they can really get outside of themselves. And so we've tried to get on the front end of that by creating this partnership and this alliance with arguably the Real Madrid of rugby, to look at.
It's a great way of putting it.
New ways. It's the way that people, and maybe it's the New York Jets or the New York Giants of football. However, whatever your fandom.
You don't want to reference the Jets right now. Trust me.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll stay clear of that.
They're in a shambles again.
Yeah. Well, having former BYU quarterback there, I've kind of closely followed that. But,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, but listen, the partnership is not just rugby. It's going to be exciting. It's going to really help, liven up not just the rugby community, but even more so the non-rugby community to what we can provide as a sport, and the excitement and the energy that as rugby fans we have fallen in love with. There's going to be some future opportunities that are come from this that we think will fundamentally help us continue to push the envelope and continue to push the MLR into new levels, new heights, but as well as push North American rugby to the level that it needs to be in order to be what I believe can be arguably the best continent of rugby in the world.
Well, a calm and thought-out perspective from Mr. Kimball Kjar, the CEO of the Utah Warriors. Thank you for coming on, sir.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll be right back with Ben LeSage, now of the New England Free Jacks, after this.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street.
And we are back at the Free Jacks facility. That's right, Free Jacks country. And we have one of our favorite all-time rugby wrap-up players in the MLR, Mr. Ben LeSage. Ben, good to see you.
Matt, great to see you again. Thanks for having me on the show.
Ben, it's great to have you back with the Arrows. I know all of Toronto is going to be thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, check your notes on that one, maybe. Yeah.
It's the Free Jacks, right? You're with the Free Jacks,
the
right?
Canadian contingent of the U.S. there.
Little confusing.
Yeah.
Little confusing, as you can imagine.
Yeah, you're not the first slip up you've made on air, so we'll forgive you for that one.
Won't be the last.
There you go.
Won't be the last. All right. So, in all seriousness, you had a bit of a journey recently. You went out to Los Angeles to play for the Giltinis.
That's right.
And you're as Canadian as anybody is, right?
Sure.
So, when you were in Southern California, did you have to find out what sunblock was because you had never used it before?
It's funny you say that, but I was the first person putting on the sunblock. I was surrounded by all the Aussies. They were wearing long sleeves when it was 16, 17 Celsius out. I had my sunblock on. I was wearing the singlet. I was just embracing all the sun I could get. So we were sort of had different agendas there maybe, but the sunblock was probably the first thing I packed. I knew what I was getting into in Southern California.
You have played against the Arrows as a Giltini, right?
You're right.
But now this is a rival, and it's your your former team.
Sure.
Is it going to be more difficult facing them than now with the Free Jacks than it was facing the Arrows with the Giltinis?
I wouldn't say more difficult. I think it'll be weird nonetheless every time. I think for me particularly, it's funny, I played for the Arrows a couple of years and never actually played a game in Toronto, right? Like, we were on the road for a while, and then the season got canceled, and then the second season I spent in Atlanta. So that'll be like the one circled on the calendar, maybe the first actual MLR game in Toronto, which will be a funny one. But I mean, I think in this league, it's a pretty short season. Every game matters. Last year, it was early in the season. LA played Toronto week 2 in Victoria, so that was like a big one. It was actually really hard-fought battle and got a tight win. But anyways, getting to play them twice this year, getting to play my first game in Toronto, I'm really looking forward to both those games.
And you're not alone here. Because you've got some teammates from that Arrows team. You've got Andrew Quattrin, not Quattrell.
There you go, he's learning.
Gotcha, Andrew. You got Spencer Jones.
Yeah.
Right? You got Cole Keith.
Correct.
So what's interesting to me is the Arrows, I thought the mantra was for them to grow the front row and grow all you guys as a unit for Team Canada.
Yeah.
And here you have two of those key components in that front row with you, which is a luxury for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, you throw in, although not former Arrows, but you got Connor Young, who just sort of got his first cap for Canada this fall.
That's right.
Who's a prop here, and then Foster DeWitt, who is sort of like product of BC and been here a couple years now and core member of this team. So yeah, there's I think more Canadian front rowers than not on this team. So they're gelling and getting along together and having a good time down here. So.
On that note, we are out of time. I want to thank Mr. John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. Thank you to Mr. Kimball Kjar, the CEO of the Utah Warriors, and to Mr. Ben LeSage, now of the New England Free Jacks. And thank you for tuning in. Please look for our other shows, including the Rugby Odds and the College Rugby Wrap-Up. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube, join our weekly newsletter, and please, please, please join our American Red Cross blood donor team.